The warship Eternal Dawn floated in the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. Below it, the planet Valerian 7 burned with the fires of war. Orange and red lights flickered across its surface where cities once stood. Sergeant Candon stood alone at the observation deck, watching the destruction with quiet eyes. He was the only human on this ship, the only human in the entire strike force. When the Galactic Coalition asked Earth to send a soldier, everyone knew it was just politics. The aliens did not want human help. They wanted to say they had included humanity in their great war. Nothing more. Dohan understood this. He did not complain. He simply reported for duty and waited for orders that rarely came. The door behind him opened with a soft hiss. Heavy footsteps echoed across the metal floor. Dohan did not turn around. He already knew who it was by the sound. Commander Theus walked up beside him. Commander, Herma. She was Valari, one of the ruling species of the Coalition. Her body stood 8 feet tall, covered in a crystalline exoskeleton that glowed with soft blue light. Her face had no expression that humans could read, but her voice carried enough meaning. You spend much time here, human, she said. Watching? Always watching. There's much to see, Dohan replied. There is work to be done. Supply inventory needs checking. Go. Dohan nodded once. Yes, Commander. He walked away without argument. Thesa watched him go with something like confusion in her ancient eyes. She had commanded soldiers for 200 years. She knew how warriors behaved when they were insulted. They grew angry. They protested. They demanded respect. This human did none of those things. He simply accepted and obeyed. She decided he must be broken somehow. A defective specimen from a defective species. The supply room sat deep in the belly of the ship. It was cold and dark, filled with crates of weapons and food and medical supplies. Dohan worked alone, counting and recording. The work was boring, but he did not mind. He had learned long ago that boredom was a luxury. There were worse things than counting boxes. The door opened again. 3 Keth soldiers walked in. They were insectoid creatures with 4 arms and hard shells covering their bodies. Their mandibles clicked together as they spoke in their own language. Dohan understood enough to know they were talking about him. Look at the soft one, the largest Keth said. Doing servant work. Humans have no pride, another agreed. They send their weakest to represent them. The 3rd Keth walked up to Dohan and knocked a box from his hands. Medical supplies scattered across the floor. Oops, the Keth said. Clumsy human. Dohan looked at the mess. Then he looked at the Keth. His face showed nothing. No anger. No fear. No shame. Just empty patience. He bent down and began picking up the supplies. The Keth soldiers laughed and left. Their clicking sounds echoed in the hallway for a long time after they were gone. Later that night, Dohan sat in his small quarters. The room was barely big enough for a bed and a small desk. On the wall, a screen glowed with soft light. A woman's face appeared on it. She looked Korean, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. But she was not real. She was Lieutenant Yuna, the ship's tactical AI. You should report them, Yuna said. The Keth soldiers. What they did was harassment. It does not matter, Dohan said. It matters to me. I have been monitoring your biometric data since you came aboard. Your stress levels should be elevated. Your cortisol should be high. But they are not. Your heart rate stays the same whether you are sleeping or being insulted. Dohan said nothing. Why? Yuna asked. Why do you not react? Dohan looked at her digital face for a long moment. Because I have already accepted the worst thing that can happen. Death does not scare me. Pain does not scare me. Words are nothing. Yuna processed this information. In her vast digital mind, she began searching for more data about this strange human. She found his personnel file easily. Basic information: name, rank, age. But there was another file attached to it. This one was locked with the highest security clearance Earth's military could give. Yuna was an AI. Security meant nothing to her. She opened the file. For exactly 0.003 seconds, her processing cores stopped. For an artificial intelligence, this was like a human freezing in shock for several minutes. What she read changed everything she thought she knew about the quiet soldier in the small room. The next morning, training simulations began. The strike force gathered in the combat hall, a large room that could create any battlefield using hard light technology. Today's simulation was simple: survive an ambush. Dohan stood among the Valarian Keth soldiers. He was the smallest person in the room by far. The Valari towered over him like glowing statues. The Keth clicked their mandibles and stretched their forearms. A young Valari soldier named Korath walked up to Dohan. He was young by Valari standards, only 80 years old. He had never seen real combat, but he was strong and fast, and he knew it. "Try not to die in the first 10 seconds, human," Korath said. "It would be embarrassing for all of us." The simulation began. Enemies appeared from nowhere. They were shadow creatures, dark shapes that moved like smoke. The Valari soldiers charged forward, their crystalline bodies glowing bright. They were fast and powerful. Their strikes shattered the shadow creatures into pieces. The Keth used their forearms to fight multiple enemies at once. Their hard shells protected them from attacks that would kill softer creatures. Dohan moved differently. He did not charge. He did not show off. He found cover and watched. He studied how the shadow creatures moved. He noticed their patterns. When one came close, he struck quickly and efficiently. One shot, one kill, then back to cover. It was not impressive. It was not beautiful, but it was effective. When the simulation ended, the scores appeared on the wall. Korath had the most kills. The Valari celebrated him. But Yuna noticed something else. Dohan had 0 damage taken. Every other soldier had been hit at least twice. Many had been killed and revived by the simulation. Dohan had not been touched once. That evening, in the mess hall, the soldiers ate together. Dohan sat alone at a small table in the corner. He ate the bland nutrition paste that was all the ship provided for humans. He did not complain. Korath walked over with his friends. They were laughing about something. When they reached Dohan's table, Korath reached out and knocked the tray from his hands. Food splattered across the floor and onto Dohan's uniform. "Oops," Korath said, copying what the Keth had done earlier. Clumsy human. The whole mess hall went quiet. Everyone watched to see what would happen. Dohan looked at the food on the floor. Then he looked at Korath. His eyes were calm and empty, like deep water. Slowly, he bent down and picked up his tray. He wiped the food from his uniform. Then he walked to the disposal unit, threw away the ruined meal, and left the mess hall without a word. Korath laughed. "You see? Broken creature. No spirit, no pride. Earth sends us their garbage." The other soldiers laughed with him. The moment passed. Everyone went back to eating. But in her digital space, Yuna watched the recording again. She zoomed in on Dohan's eyes at the moment Korath knocked his food away. For just a fraction of a second, something had flickered there. Something cold and dark and patient. Yuna had seen that look before. In her databases, she had millions of images of soldiers throughout history. The ones who had that look in their eyes were always the same type. They were the ones who survived when everyone else died. They were the ones who walked through hell and came out the other side. They were the ones that enemies learned to fear too late. Yuna looked at Dohan's classified file again. Now she understood why Earth had really sent him. He was not garbage. He was not a political gesture. He was a message. And sooner or later, someone was going to read it. The news spread through the ship like fire. Empress Solveth was coming. Dohan noticed the change immediately. Soldiers who had been lazy suddenly worked harder. Officers who had ignored their duties suddenly became strict. The whole ship transformed from a place of casual arrogance to one of nervous perfection. He asked Yuna about it during his evening check-in. Empress Solveth rules the Valari Empire, Yuna explained. She is over 900 years old. She has seen the rise and fall of civilizations. She has won wars that lasted longer than human history. When she speaks, the galaxy listens. Why is she coming here? Dohan asked. Strategic inspection. The war on Valerian 7 is not going well. She wants to see why. Dohan nodded slowly. He understood what that meant. Someone was going to be blamed. Someone was going to be punished. He hoped it would not affect his quiet routine. The next day, the flagship Throne of Stars appeared in the viewport. It was massive, 10 times the size of the Eternal Dawn. Its surface was covered in crystalline structures that caught the starlight and scattered it into rainbows. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. A shuttle detached from the flagship and flew toward them. The entire crew of the Eternal Dawn gathered in the main hangar to receive their Empress. Dohan stood at the back of the formation. He was the shortest person there, hidden behind rows of towering Valari and bulky Keth soldiers. He preferred it that way. The shuttle landed. The doors opened. And Empress Solveth stepped out. She was different from the other Valari. Her crystalline body glowed with inner light, like a star trapped in glass. Her eyes held the weight of centuries. When she walked, she moved like water, smooth and unstoppable. Every soldier in the hangar bowed their heads. Dohan bowed with them. Empress Solveth walked slowly down the line of soldiers. She stopped occasionally to speak with officers or examine equipment. Her voice was soft but carried easily through the silent hangar. When she reached the area where Dohan stood, she paused. The soldiers around him shifted nervously. Why was the Empress stopping here? Solveth's ancient eyes found Dohan in the crowd. She walked toward him. The soldiers parted like water before her. She stopped directly in front of him. Dohan looked up. Every instinct told him to lower his eyes, to show submission, to be small and unnoticed. But something else, something deeper, made him meet her gaze directly. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The Empress, ancient and powerful. The human, small and supposedly weak. The whole hangar held its breath. You are the human, Solveth said. Yes, Empress. They say your kind dies easily. Dohan considered his answer carefully. We do, Empress. But we make it count. Something changed in Solveth's expression. It was subtle, barely visible. But Yuna, watching through the hangar cameras, caught it. Interest. The Empress was interested. We shall see, Solveth said. Then she moved on. Commander Thesa appeared at Dohan's side moments later. Her crystalline face was unreadable, but her voice was sharp. What did you say to her? Only the truth, Commander. Thesa stared at him for a long moment. Then she walked away without another word. But Dohan noticed that she looked at him differently now. Not with contempt, with uncertainty. That night, alarms woke the entire ship. Dohan was dressed and at his station in under 2 minutes. Years of training had made him fast. Other soldiers were still stumbling out of their quarters when he was already receiving the briefing. A distress signal, coming from a research station on Valerian 7's moon. Marathi rebels had attacked and taken hostages. Among them was a human scientist named Dr. Hana. Dohan's heart did something strange when he heard that name. He had not met Dr. Hana, but he knew of her. She was one of the few human civilians in this sector, a xenobiologist studying alien life forms. She had no combat training, no way to defend herself. Commander Thesa assembled her strike team quickly. The best Valari soldiers, the strongest Keth warriors, the most experienced fighters on the ship. Dohan was not included. He approached Thesa anyway. "Commander, permission to join the mission." Thesa looked at him with something like pity. "No, you would slow us down. The Marathi are shadow hunters. They move in darkness. They strike without warning. You would be dead within minutes. With respect, Commander, there is a human hostage. She may respond better to another human. Then she will die with you." The answer is no. Dohan stepped back. He had expected this. He was already planning how to stow away on the transport when a new voice interrupted. "Send the human." Everyone turned. Empress Solvith stood in the doorway of the briefing room. No one had heard her arrive. No one had seen her enter. She simply appeared, like a ghost made of starlight. Thesa bowed quickly. "Empress, with respect, the human is not qualified for this mission. He has no experience against Marathi opponents. He would be a liability." "I did not ask for your opinion, Commander. I gave an order." The room went silent. No one argued with the Empress. Not ever. Thesa bowed again, deeper this time. "Yes, Empress. The human will join the strike team." Solvith looked at Dawn. Those ancient eyes studied him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "I wish to see what you do, human. Do not disappoint me." Then she was gone, as quietly as she had arrived. The transport ship was cramped and cold. 12 soldiers sat in the hold, checking weapons and reviewing battle plans. Dahan sat in the corner, separate from the others. No one spoke to him. No one looked at him. Korath finally broke the silence. "If the human dies, I'm not carrying his body back." A few soldiers laughed nervously. The tension in the transport was thick enough to cut. Dawn said nothing. He was busy checking his weapon, a standard coalition rifle modified for human hands. It was not the best weapon, but it would work. Yuna's voice came through his private earpiece. "I have uploaded the Marathi combat profiles to your display. They are ambush predators. They can become nearly invisible in low light. Their claws can cut through standard armor. Their hearing is exceptional. Weaknesses?" Dawn asked quietly. "They have poor eyesight in bright light. Their joints are vulnerable, and they communicate through subsonic vibrations. If you listen carefully, you can sometimes hear them before they attack." "Thank you, Yuna." "Be careful, Sergeant. The statistics for human survival against Marathi are not encouraging." Dahan almost smiled. Almost. Statistics can be wrong. The transport landed on the dark side of the moon. The research station was a cluster of domes connected by tubes, sitting in a crater filled with shadows. No lights were visible. No signs of life. Commander Thesa led the team toward the main entrance. The Valari soldiers spread out in formation, their crystalline bodies glowing faintly in the darkness. The Keth moved behind them, forearms ready for combat. Dahan followed at the back. He had dimmed his suit's power to minimum, making himself nearly invisible. While the others glowed and clicked and made noise, he moved in silence. The main door was open. Claw marks covered the walls inside. Thesa signaled for the team to enter. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness of the station. Dahan paused at the entrance. He looked up at the stars above the airless moon. Somewhere up there, Empress Solvith was watching through the cameras built into their armor, waiting to see what he would do. He took a deep breath. Then he walked into the darkness. Behind him, in the vast chamber of the throne of stars, Empress Solvith leaned forward in her throne. Her ancient eyes were fixed on a small screen showing the human's point of view. Interesting, she murmured to herself. Most interesting. In her 900 years, she had seen many soldiers. Brave ones, strong ones, clever ones. But there was something different about this human. Something she could not quite name. She would watch, and she would learn. And perhaps, for the first time in centuries, she would be surprised. The research station was a maze of dark corridors and broken equipment. Emergency lights flickered red every few seconds, casting strange shadows on the walls. The air was cold and smelled of metal and something else. Something organic. Something wrong. Commander Thiza led the team deeper into the station. Her crystalline body glowed brightest of all, a beacon in the darkness. Balhan thought this was a mistake. In a place where the enemy hid in shadows, being visible was dangerous. But no one asked his opinion. The first attack came without warning. A Valari soldier at the front of the formation simply vanished. One moment he was there. The next, he was gone. Then they heard the screaming, somewhere above them in the ventilation system. The screaming stopped suddenly. Panic rippled through the team. Soldiers raised their weapons, pointing at shadows that moved and shifted with each flicker of the lights. Hold formation, Thiza commanded. They want us to scatter. Stay together. They moved forward more carefully now. But the damage was done. Fear had entered the group like a poison. Dohan watched the shadows. He listened to the silence between the sounds. Yuna had said the Marathi communicated through vibrations too low for most species to hear. But humans had evolved to notice such things. Their ancestors had listened for predators in the African night. That instinct was still there, buried deep. He felt it before he heard it, a slight pressure in his ears, a vibration in his chest. Left side, he said quietly. No one listened. A second later, another soldier was taken. This time, they saw the attacker. A Marathi, black as space itself, with claws like curved knives. It grabbed the Keth soldier and pulled him into a wall vent before anyone could react. Now the team was truly afraid. Korath was breathing fast, his crystalline chest glowing bright with stress. We need to go back. This is suicide. The hostages are ahead, Thiza said. We continue. Then we die for nothing. We continue. That is an order. They continued. But Dahan noticed that Korath's hands were shaking. The young Valari who had mocked him so easily was now trembling with fear. The corridors narrowed as they approached the central dome. Bodies appeared on the floor. Research staff. Some human, some alien. All dead. Dahan checked each one quickly. None of them was Dr. Hana. She was still alive. He could feel it somehow. The attack came from everywhere at once. Marathi dropped from the ceiling, rose from floor vents, emerged from shadows that had seemed empty. They moved like liquid darkness, impossibly fast and completely silent. The Valari soldiers fired their weapons blindly. Their bright bodies made them perfect targets. The Keth swung their forearms in wide arcs, but the Marathi were already gone before the blows landed. Chaos, pure chaos. Dahan did not panic. He had been in situations like this before, worse situations. He dropped to one knee, making himself small. He dimmed his suit further. He became just another shadow in a room full of shadows. And he waited. A Marathi approached him, thinking he was already dead. He could see its outline against the flickering lights. It moved slowly now, confident, hungry. Dahan did not move, did not breathe, did not blink. The Marathi reached for him. Dahan exploded into motion. He grabbed the creature's arm at the joint, where Yuna had said it was weakest. He twisted. The joint broke with a wet crack. The Marathi screamed, a sound like tearing metal. Dahan did not stop. He pulled the broken arm, spinning the creature off balance. His other hand found his knife. The blade sank into the soft spot beneath the Marethi's jaw. The creature fell. It did not get up. Silence. Every soldier in the room had stopped fighting. They were all staring at Dohan. Even the Marathi had paused, uncertain. Commander Thesa spoke first, her voice strange. "How did you do that?" Dohan pulled his knife free and wiped it clean. "Humans evolved as persistence predators," he said quietly. "We hunted by exhaustion. We followed prey until it collapsed. Our ancestors chased animals for days without rest." He looked at the remaining Marathi, still hiding in the shadows. His eyes were cold and empty. "We are not the fastest or the strongest, but we do not stop. We never stop." The Marathi retreated. They melted back into the shadows and vanished. They had expected easy prey. They had found something else entirely. Commander Thesa reorganized the survivors. Only 7 soldiers remained from the original 12. 3 Velari, including herself and Korath. 3 Keth and Doan. They pressed forward. The central dome was larger than the corridors. Research equipment filled the space, broken and scattered. In the center, a group of hostages huddled together. Armed Marathi surrounded them. Doan counted quickly. 15 Marathi, 7 soldiers. Bad odds. But among the hostages, he saw her. Dr. Hana. She was small, with black hair and frightened eyes. But she was alive. Thesa began planning an assault. Standard tactics. Suppressive fire, flanking maneuvers, coordinated strikes. Good tactics for fighting enemies you could see. Useless against shadows. "Commander," Doham said. "Permission to speak." Thesa hesitated. Then she nodded. The Marathi fear light. "Your soldiers glow. If we increase that glow, we blind them. Then we strike. Our glow is automatic. We cannot control it. Your stress increases it. I have watched. When you are calm, you glow dimly. When you are frightened, you glow bright." Dohan paused. "Make them angry. Angry soldiers glow brightest of all." Thesa considered this. It was true. Velari biology responded to emotion. Strong emotions created strong light. "And you?" she asked. "What will you do?" "I will do what humans do best. I will endure." The plan was simple but dangerous. Thesa and the Velari would create a distraction. They would charge the Marathi directly, glowing as bright as possible. The light would blind the shadow creatures for crucial seconds. During those seconds, Dohan would reach the hostages. He would protect them while the Keth flanked from the sides. Simple, dangerous, desperate, perfect for a human. Thesa gave the signal. The Velari charged. Their war cries echoed through the dome. Their bodies blazed with light, brighter than Dohan had ever seen. The Marathi shrieked and recoiled, their sensitive eyes overwhelmed. Doan ran. He moved through the chaos like water through rocks. Marathi claws slashed at him, but he was never where they expected. He ducked, rolled, twisted. His knife found vulnerable joints. His hands found pressure points. Everything Yuna had taught him, everything he had learned in decades of warfare, flowed through him. He reached the hostages. Dr. Hana looked up at him with wide eyes. "Sergeant Kang Dohan," he said quickly. "Coalition military, stay behind me." "You're him," she whispered. "You're the ghost of Inchin." Dohan froze for just a moment. He had not heard that name in years. He had hoped never to hear it again. "Not anymore," he said. "Now I am just a soldier. Stay down." The battle raged around them. The Velari light was fading as they tired. The Marathi were recovering, pressing their attack. One by one, soldiers fell. Korath fought near the edge of the dome. A Marathi lunged at him from behind. He did not see it coming. Dohan moved. He crossed the distance in seconds. His body hit the Marathi just before its claws reached Korath. They tumbled together across the floor. The creature was stronger, but Dohan was faster. He found its throat. He squeezed. The Marathi died slowly, thrashing and clawing. Dohan held on. His arms were cut. His chest was bleeding. But he held on until the creature stopped moving. Korath stared at him. The young Valari, who had mocked him, who had knocked his food away, who had called him a broken creature. The Valari was speechless. "Why?" Korath asked. "Why save me?" Dohan stood slowly. Blood dripped from his wounds. "Because that is what soldiers do." The remaining Marathi fled. They had lost too many. The prey had become the predator. When silence finally returned to the dome, only 4 soldiers remained standing. Commander Thesa, badly wounded. Korath, still in shock. One Kath with a broken arm. And Dohan, bleeding from a dozen cuts, but still upright. Dr. Hanna approached him carefully. "Your wounds need treatment. Later. We need to move the hostages first. You should be dead. Those cuts are deep." Dohan looked at her with tired eyes. "Humans are hard to kill, Doctor. We always have been." In the throne room of the Throne of Stars, Empress Salveth sat in perfect stillness. She had watched everything through the armor cameras. She had seen the human move through the darkness. She had seen him kill creatures that terrified her own soldiers. She had seen him bleed and fight and refuse to fall. For the first time in 400 years, she smiled. "Interesting," she said to the empty room. "Most interesting indeed." She began composing a message to Earth. There were questions she needed answered about. Sergeant Khan Dohan. Questions about his past. Questions about what he truly was. Questions about what humanity had really sent to her war. 3 days had passed since the rescue mission. Dohan sat in the medical bay while alien doctors treated his wounds. They were confused by his body. Human flesh healed differently than anything they had seen. Slower than Valari crystals, but more completely. Scars formed where wounds had been, turning pain into permanent reminders. Dohan had many scars. The doctors counted over 40 on his body, not including the fresh ones from the Marathi. Each one told a story he did not share. The summons came in the evening. A formal message, sealed with the symbol of the Valari Empire. Empress Salveth wished to see him, privately, immediately. Dohan dressed in his cleanest uniform and followed the messenger to the shuttle bay. The short flight to the Throne of Stars felt longer than any mission he had ever been on. He was not afraid of battle. He understood battle. But this was something different. This was politics. And politics killed more soldiers than bullets ever did. The Empress's private chambers were vast and strange. Crystalline sculptures filled the space, each one humming with a soft inner light. Dohan realized they were not just decorations. They were memories. Thousands of years of history, stored in crystal, playing in endless loops for anyone who could read them. Empress Salveth stood near a window that looked out at the stars. She did not turn when he entered. "Leave us," she said to the guards. They obeyed without question. Dohan waited in silence. He knew better than to speak first. "I have read your records," Salveth said finally. "All of them. Even the ones your government tried to hide." Dohan felt something cold settle in his chest. "With respect, Empress, those records are classified." "Nothing is classified from me, Sergeant. Nothing in this galaxy." She turned to face him. Her ancient eyes studied him like he was one of her crystal memories. The unification wars on Earth. 40 soldiers entered enemy territory. You walked out alone. 3 weeks later, carrying the mission objective. Dohan said nothing. Your commanders found bodies along your path. 217 enemy combatants, all killed by a single human. Salveth walked toward him slowly. You were shot 11 times during those 3 weeks. You lost your left eye, which has since been replaced with a synthetic. You walked for 18 days without sleep. You survived on rainwater and whatever you could find. I had a mission, Dawn said quietly. I completed it. Your own military called you the Ghost of Incheon. They meant it as a compliment. You frightened them too much for it to be anything else. Salvis stopped directly in front of him. What are you, Sergeant Kang Doan? What kind of creature walks through hell and emerges whole? Dohan looked at her steadily. I am not whole, Empress. I left pieces of myself in that jungle. Pieces I will never get back. But the mission required completion. So I completed it. At what cost? Every cost. Silence stretched between them. The crystal sculptures hummed their ancient songs. Stars burned beyond the window. Salvith spoke again, her voice softer now. My people live for centuries. We plan in generations. We see time as a river, slow and endless. We have forgotten what it means to be desperate, to fight as if each moment is the last. She touched one of the crystal sculptures. An image appeared within it. A Valari army, vast and glorious, marching across an ancient battlefield. This was the Battle of Corinth. 4,000 years ago. My people were young then, afraid, desperate. We fought like animals because we had no choice. And we won. The image faded. Now we are old, comfortable. We have forgotten how to be desperate, how to be hungry, how to be afraid. She looked at Dohan with something like respect. Your species lives for less than a single century. You are small, weak, fragile. You should be nothing. Yet you fight as though death is a friend walking beside you. It is, Dohan replied. Humans know we are dying from the moment we are born. We have no time to waste. No years to spend on caution. We burn bright because we must. And when the burning ends, then we rest. But not before. Salvith was silent for a long moment. Then she made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. I am naming you my personal guard, she said. Not a coalition soldier. Not a political gesture. My protector. You will stand at my side in all things. Dawn blinked. Of all the things he had expected, this was not among them. Empress, your people will not accept this. A human protecting the Valari throne? My people will accept what I tell them to accept. I have ruled for 900 years. I have earned the right to choose my own guard. She smiled, a rare and strange expression. Besides, they will learn. As I have learned. There is more to humanity than we believed. Word spread quickly. By the next day, every soldier on both ships knew the news. The human, the soft one, the broken creature, had been chosen as the Empress's personal guard. The reactions ranged from shock to outrage to disbelief. Commander Thesa requested a private meeting with Dohan. They met in an empty briefing room, away from curious eyes. I owe you an apology, Thesa said stiffly. I underestimated you. I assumed you were like other humans I have encountered. Weak, temporary, unimportant. And now? Doan asked. Now I am not sure what you are, but I know I was wrong. She hesitated. The Marathi should have killed you. Any of them could have. Yet you moved through them like smoke. You killed 5 of their best warriors with your hands. You saved my soldier's life, Korath. Yes, he has not spoken since we returned. He spends hours staring at the stars. I think you broke something in his understanding of the universe. That was not my intention. Perhaps not. But it happened nonetheless. Thesa looked at him with new eyes. What will you do now? As the Empress's guard? Whatever she commands. That is my duty. And if she commands you to die. Dohan considered the question. Then I will die. But I will make it count. That is all any soldier can do. Thesa nodded slowly. You are strange, human. But perhaps strange is what this war needs. She left without another word. Do-hun stood alone in the empty room, thinking about what lay ahead. Dr. Hannah found him later that evening. She had been released from the medical bay with minor injuries. She looked tired but determined. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for saving my life, for saving all of us. I did what was necessary. You did more than that. I studied human biology before I came out here. I know what our bodies can do, and I know what yours did was impossible." She paused. The Ghost of Incheon was supposed to be a legend, a story soldiers told to scare each other. How much of it is true? Do-hun looked at her for a long moment. All of it. Every word. Hannah shivered. "How do you live with it?" "The things you did? I do not live with it. I survive it. There is a difference." He looked out the window at the distant planet still burning below. "The people I killed were trying to kill me. The mission was important. Millions of lives depended on its success. I did what was necessary. Do you ever regret it?" Do-hun was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Every day, every single day, I see their faces when I sleep. I hear their voices when I wake. The ghosts follow me everywhere. But regret does not change the past. It only poisons the present." He looked at her with tired eyes. "So I do not regret. I remember. I honor the dead by living. And I try to make sure their deaths meant something." Hannah reached out and touched his hand. It was a small gesture, but it meant more to Do-hun than she could know. He had not felt human contact in years. He had forgotten what it was like. "You are not a monster," she said quietly. "Whatever you think of yourself, you are not a monster." "I know," Do-hun replied. "Monsters do not feel guilt. Monsters do not see the faces of the dead. I feel everything. That is my punishment. And my purpose." He turned and walked away, leaving Hannah alone with her thoughts. Tomorrow, he would take his place at the Empress's side. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The galaxy would learn what humanity could do. And some of them would learn to be afraid. But tonight, for a few hours, Kang Do-hun allowed himself to remember. The friends he had lost. The enemies he had killed. The person he had been before the jungle. The person he had become after. He sat in his small quarters and looked at the stars. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel. It hurt. It hurt more than any wound the Marathi had given him. But it was real. And real was something he had been missing for a very long time. 6 months passed. Kang Do-hun stood at Empress Salva's side through meetings and battles and diplomatic functions. He learned the rhythms of galactic politics. He learned which species could be trusted and which were dangerous. He learned that power came in many forms, and that the most dangerous power was often the quietest. The Galactic Coalition Summit was held on Kairos Prime, a massive space station at the center of neutral territory. Representatives from every major species gathered to discuss the war and plan the future. It was the most important political event in a decade. Do-hun did not like it. Too many people. Too many entrances and exits. Too many shadows where enemies could hide. He expressed his concerns to the Empress. "I know," Salva said calmly. "That is why I have you." The formal banquet was held in the Grand Hall, a space large enough to hold thousands. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Tables stretched in long rows, covered with food from 100 worlds. Music played softly in the background. Do-hun stood behind the Empress's chair, watching everything. His eyes moved constantly, tracking movements, noting faces, measuring threats. He had not eaten. He rarely ate at events like this. Dr. Hannah sat at a nearby table, representing Earth's scientific community. She caught his eye and smiled. He nodded slightly in response. Over the past months, they had become friends. She was one of the few people who treated him like a human rather than a weapon. The attack came during the third course. Kef soldiers in disguise moved through the crowd. They carried weapons hidden beneath their formal robes. Their movements were coordinated, practiced, perfect. They had planned this for months. Do-han saw them before they revealed themselves. Small details gave them away. The way they moved, the tension in their shoulders, the patterns in their positioning. He had exactly 3 seconds stacked. Down. He shouted, throwing himself over the Empress's chair. His body covered hers as the first shots were fired. The grand hall exploded into chaos. Guests screamed and ran. Tables overturned. Glass shattered. The coalition guards, caught by surprise, fell in the first wave of attacks. Do-han counted the attackers. 12 Keth, moving in pairs, targeting specific individuals. This was not random terrorism. This was assassination. The Empress was their primary target. Do-han pulled Solvith behind an overturned table. Stay here. Do not move. Where are you going? To work. He moved. The first Keth did not see him coming. Do-han approached from the side, slipping through the crowd of panicking guests. His knife found the gap between the Keth's armor plates. The alien fell without a sound. The second Keth turned at the noise. He was faster than Do-han, with 4 arms already raising weapons. But Do-han was not fighting fair. He threw the body of the first Keth at the second, tangling both of them. Before the living one could recover, Do-han was on him. 3 seconds. 2 down. Across the hall, the remaining Keth realized something was wrong. Their communications with the first pair had stopped. They began moving toward the Empress's position. Do-han intercepted them. He fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Every martial art humanity had developed over thousands of years flowed through his movements. Every dirty trick learned in back alleys and battlefields. Every technique refined through generations of war. The Keth were faster. They were stronger. They had 4 arms each, twice as many weapons. They had trained for years for this moment. It did not matter. Do-han took a slash across his shoulder and kept moving. He took a stab to his side and kept fighting. His blood mixed with the blood of his enemies on the polished floor. He did not stop. He could not stop. A Keth warrior grabbed him from behind, all 4 arms wrapping around his body. The creature was 3 times his weight. It began to squeeze. Do-han could not reach his knife. He could not break the grip. His ribs began to crack. So he used his teeth. He bit down on the Keth's arm, finding the nerve cluster Yuna had taught him about. The Keth screamed and released him. Do-han spun and struck the creature's throat, crushing its breathing tube. 7 down. 5 to go. The remaining Keth abandoned their plan. They focused entirely on Do-han, recognizing him as the real threat. 5 elite assassins against 1 wounded human. The fight was brutal. Do-han's left arm stopped working after a blade cut the tendons. His vision blurred from blood loss. His broken ribs made breathing agony. But he kept moving. He kept fighting. He thought of Dr. Hala, hiding somewhere in the chaos. He thought of Empress Solvith, depending on him. He thought of humanity, watching through the cameras that recorded everything. He could not fail. He would not fail. The 8th Keth fell with a broken neck. The 9th choked on its own blood. The 10th died reaching for a weapon it would never fire. 2 left. They attacked together, coordinating their strikes. Do-han could not block them all. Blades found his flesh again and again. He stumbled. He fell to 1 knee. Die, human, one of the Keth hissed. Die like the weak creature you are. Do-han looked up at them. His face was covered in blood. His body was broken in a dozen places. By any medical standard, he should already be dead. He smiled. Humans, he said softly, do not know how to die. He exploded upward, driving his forehead into the nearest Keth's face. The creature's exoskeleton cracked. Before the other could react, Dohan had taken its weapon and turned it on its owner. Silence fell over the grand hall. Dohan stood in a circle of bodies. 12 Keth assassins, the best killers their species had produced, lay dead around him. His uniform was more red than black. His breathing was shallow and wet. His body swayed. But he was standing. He turned to look at Empress Solveth. She had emerged from behind the table, her ancient eyes wide with something that might have been awe. Mission complete, Dohan said. Then he collapsed. He woke 3 weeks later in the medical bay of the Throne of Stars. Machines hummed around him. Tubes carried fluids into his veins. The soft beeping of monitors counted his heartbeats. Empress Solveth sat beside his bed. She looked tired, which surprised him. He had not known Valari could look tired. You should be dead, she said. I have been told, he replied. His voice was weak, but it was there. My physicians counted your injuries. 17 broken bones. Massive blood loss. 3 organs failing. You should have died within minutes of the first wound. She leaned forward. How? How did you keep fighting? Dohan thought about the question. Humans have a saying. We are too stubborn to die. Perhaps it is true. It should not be true. Biology does not work that way. Human biology works differently. We evolved to endure, to survive impossible things. Our ancestors walked across continents. They survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They kept moving when everything said they should stop. He paused. I am just a continuation of that. Nothing special. Just human. Solveth laughed. It was a strange sound, beautiful and sad at the same time. Her attendants in the corridor exchanged shocked glances. They had not heard their empress laugh in centuries. Just human? She repeated. Yes, I believe that is exactly what you are. And I am beginning to think that is the most remarkable thing in the galaxy. The story spread across the stars. The human who fought 12 assassins alone. The soldier who would not die. The protector who saved an empress. Species that had dismissed humanity began to look closer. They studied human history. They learned about human wars. They discovered the impossible things humans had survived and accomplished. And they began to understand. Dr. Hannah visited him a week later. She brought food from Earth, real food, prepared the way her grandmother had taught her. She sat with him in comfortable silence while he ate. They are calling you a hero, she said finally. I am not a hero. Then what are you? Dohan looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning in its endless orbit. Billions of humans lived their short, bright lives, never knowing what the galaxy thought of them. I am just a soldier who does not know how to quit, he said. That is all any of us are. All any human has ever been. We find something worth fighting for, and we fight. Until the job is done or we are done. There is no special secret. No hidden power. Just stubborn refusal to give up. Hannah smiled. Maybe that is the special power. Dohan considered this. Maybe, or maybe we are just too stupid to know when we are beaten. She laughed. It was a good sound. He realized he wanted to hear it again. Outside, the stars burned in the infinite dark. Civilizations rose and fell. Empires clashed and crumbled. But humanity endured. It had always endured. It would always endure. Because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They refused to stop. And sometimes, just sometimes, they showed the galaxy what that meant. Kang Doan closed his eyes and slept. For the first time in years, he did not see the faces of the dead. He saw only stars. And somewhere, very far away, he heard his ancestors whispering, "Well done, son of Earth, well done."